Dad's live in a trailer with rusted pants. Mom's dog's bald, it's got no flair. Lost all its hair, and it don't care. Pink blankets, lies I've told again. Footprints vanish like phantom friends. I'm Superman, Daniel, faster than wind, stronger than a chopper with a rotor spin. I rake my driveway for Mom shakes her fist. Super Daniel, yeah, I can't be missed.
I like this one better, I think.
Not allowed on Mama's ATV. She says I drive it recklessly. X wrote her name on my mirror in red. Now I'm searching cool, it's like I lost my head. Dirt roads, rivers, waist high deep. Virginia swims, I puff and leap. I'm Superman, Daniel, faster than wind, stronger than a chopper when the rotors spin. I rake my driveway for Mom shakes her fist. Super Daniel, yeah, I can't be missed. No, out on Mama's ATV. She says I drive it recklessly. X wrote her name on my mirror in red. Now I'm searching covers like I lost my head. Dirt roads, rivers, waist high deep. Virginia swims, I puff and leap. I'm Superman, Daniel, arrogant and bold, strutting pop lines in the cold. Work 1 day a week at the sawmill grind. Super Daniel, yeah, I own my time. I'm Superman, Daniel, arrogant and bold, strutting pop lines in the cold. Work 1 day a week at the sawmill grind. Super Daniel, yeah, I own my time.
Even with me running through the woods over the head of the helicopters and head of the drones and stuff like that.
That's a good one.
Okay, welcome in everyone. I can't remember if I played that the other day, but that's the new improved version of Justin's Superman Dan song. So I've it has got a real Cotton Eye Joe feel, hasn't it? Justin has a bit of a knack when it comes to coming up with cool songs. Yeah, Mr. Hemi, that's okay. I'll pass on the baklava. I would have preferred chocolate, but that's okay. My groceries are coming after I finish the live stream, and I think I may have actually ordered a chocolate bar in there, possibly just to treat myself. I can't remember now because, you know, that was yesterday. So, a few updates. First of all, Belinda posted this probably about 6 or 7 hours ago now. I would like everyone to know that after much discussion with my lawyer, Darlene Thomas, it's time for me to seek new counsel. She no longer represents me and my guardianship. She will do her best to help me transition this. She's gotten me this far, and I want to express my appreciation and gratitude for all she has done. I'm still moving forward with what I feel is best for my grandchildren. Lily and Jack, I also want to thank all of you for supporting my cause and for all the love shown to Lily and Jack. Thank you. So, big move for Belinda. I hope that there is a lawyer somewhere waiting in the wings to jump in and help her out with this. I haven't had a chance to touch base with her over it. Her reasoning for that, I guess, is I'm not worried about that. That's up to her. And I think at this point in time, Belinda's probably just so exhausted that she probably doesn't even really need to be coming out and explaining any of this to us. So a move in a new direction for Belinda. So let's watch this space and hopefully, touch wood, there's someone there that can jump in and help her out with this case. Now, the other thing, which considering that many of you do follow Justin's channel, you may have seen... Oh, no, not there yet. Okay, for those of you who have been following Phoebe's case, Phoebe Bishop, who is our Australian girl from up in Queensland who went missing. It'll be a year tomorrow that Phoebe's flatmates were supposed to drive her to the airport, and instead they ended her life and dumped her out in the bush. This is a mural that has been recently done at her former school, and it's been done sort of to honour her memory. It turns out I did need that subscription for the I can't even think which news media outlet it is, but I've got a whole bunch of stuff now with Phoebe's case, so I can do an update. I spent a lot of time yesterday afternoon just going through various articles, which is why I didn't get around to putting a video out last night, because I spent a lot of time going through Phoebe's case and also a lot of time preparing for a video to tackle the crap that Daniel's saying about his ADHD, because while I will address it in my live streams a little bit, I'm not going to go to it is beautiful artwork. I think it really honours her. It doesn't look at all like Phoebe, but I don't think that's the intention. I think it's just meant to honour her. So I will be putting out a video giving you updates on Phoebe's case, hopefully today. Hopefully there won't be interruptions. I'm also working on a video talking about Daniel's ADHD claims, just explaining why he's just speaking BS. And like I said, I will cover, I'll tackle it lightly in this live stream when we get to that point. And I know I've said, no, Belinda isn't abandoning her petition for guardianship. She's still going for guardianship. She is just looking for a new lawyer, someone based in Nova Scotia, because there's limitations on how many days Darlene can practice law in Nova Scotia, I believe, because she's not from there. That's my understanding. Yeah. He is arrogant, he's disturbed, I'm really triggered by these last lot of live streams that he's done, I have to say. Not a fan at all. So yeah, updates on Phoebe's case, proper information about ADHD, not the bullcrap that Daniel's putting out. For those of you who have been around for a while and know that I've been talking about the Samantha Murphy case, which is the Australian woman who went missing from Ballarat, which is a few hours' drive from here. I was trying to find out where things were at with the court case. Turns out they haven't actually set a date for the actual court case. So they've had all the pre-trial stuff. I'm not sure if that's still going, because that's all stuff that can't be reported on legally. Ironically, the only way I managed to find that out was by going on to Ping's channel. I think it's called Nights with Ping. He's another Australian here based in Victoria. And it's only from going onto his channel that I was able to find out where things are at with Samantha Murphy's case. So I've got a lot of updates to be working on right now, and I will get them out as quickly as I can. I think I'm just going to do each case separately as an update rather than try to do a longer video, because I think I'm just putting too much pressure on myself in terms of trying to get on top of everything. And I think if I break it down into smaller chunks, I'll get there. Look, Carrie, I really hope it's got nothing to do with all that stuff that's been coming from Malaya's side of things, because what Belinda's doing is for the sake of her grandchildren. She genuinely cares. She's the only person in this case who seems to have been really wanting to fight for Lily and Jack. So I hope this hasn't got anything to do with Malaya and all her little hanger-oners. So, yeah, let's see where things go from there. Now, the other update, which may mean something to you guys, may not, but I saw this on Justin's page this morning and was like, oh my gosh, wow. Alex Murdoch. So you may have heard of this case. He was convicted for murdering his wife and son. And this guy's crooked as wealthy as, and basically had avoided convictions for a long time. And they finally got him, and they finally had him convicted. And now it turns out that his convictions and life sentences for murder have been overturned by the South Carolina Supreme Court. Honestly, I can't read today. The court ruled that jury interference connected to former Colleton County Clerk of Court, Becky Hill, compromised the fairness of the trial. A new trial has now been ordered. This doesn't mean that he's declared innocent. It means the state's highest court found the original trial was legally tainted enough and that the convictions cannot stand. Murdoch remains behind bars on separate financial crime convictions, but the double murder case involving Maggie and Paul Murdoch is now headed into a whole new legal chapter. This is the second one. First we had Letitia Stouch, her conviction being overturned. Now we have Alex Murdoch. There isn't any double jeopardy loophole, thankfully. I'm just going to play. There's a short media article that I found that does explain it quite well. So I'm just going to play that. Oh, I should probably say I'm not going to go into depth on this case in my channel. I think probably it's something that Justin might cover. It's just not something, I've got enough cases that I am covering, that it's not something that I want to go into depth on here on my channel. So this is just kind of, I'm going to mention it here and that's about it.
Hi, I'm Diane Macedo. We have breaking news. The South Carolina Supreme Court is overturning Alex Murdoch's double murder conviction. A jury found Murdoch guilty of murdering his wife and son in 2021. But the state Supreme Court just found a court clerk interfered with the jury by attacking Murdoch's credibility. ABC's Andrew Dimbert and ABC News legal contributor Bernardo Villalona are here with more on what that means for the case now. Andrew, what's the latest here?
Well, this is a stunning decision here. And of course, this trial captivated all the minds and watchers on streamers and Netflix with the documentary. This is a very high profile case here. The South Carolina Supreme Court now throwing out Alex Murdaugh's murder conviction and ordering a new trial. Murdaugh was convicted in 2023 of killing his wife Maggie and son Paul, but now the state Supreme Court unanimously deciding to toss the conviction, the high court finding that the county clerk, Becky Hill, improperly influenced jurors during the high-profile trial. According to the court's opinion just released, Hill made comments like, "Don't be fooled" by Murdaugh's defense and told them to watch his behavior closely while he testified. Murdaugh's attorneys have long argued that jury tampering tainted the verdict. However, a lower court had previously denied their request for a new trial, a decision now reversed by the state's highest court. But Murdaugh is not a free man here. He won't be walking out of prison anytime soon. The former attorney also pleaded guilty to stealing around $12 million from his clients, and he's currently serving a 40-year federal sentence, but still looks like on the murder trial he's going to get a new trial here, according to the state Supreme Court, reversing that conviction.
Bernardo, what do you make of this decision?
I won't play all of it because I think that pretty much sums it up. But if that's true about this woman, oh, my audio again. Okay, now I'm right. If that's true about this woman, like, wow. But, Ernestine is spot on. Did he have to pull strings to make this happen? I'm sorry, but given the way this guy, I agree completely. Given the way this guy has tried to wield his influence forever, how do we know that someone wasn't, like someone in the jury, wasn't paid off to make these statements against this woman? Like, I would like to know if this woman is actually admitting that she did it as well, or if this is just allegations from a handful of jurors or allegations from his lawyers. Because, I mean, the whole case is surrounded by corruption and crap like that. So, I just want to know it's genuine. Yeah. And how many times does a lawyer use those kind of words to a jury? I can't help but be cynical about it. I think, it's like Barry Morphew. It's these rich guys who know how to buy justice for themselves. I mean, I was relieved when Barry Morphew was arrested again, but I'm not holding my breath. Because when you've got so much money to throw around, people can be bought. And it does worry me that this is going to happen with this case, that this whole conviction is just never going to happen. Yes, it sounds like he's going to serve life for the 40 years for his, what was it, $12 million theft or something. But, I just can't trust the system when it centers around the guy who there was so much corruption in the first place with his case. Like, I mean, the fact that he got convicted in the first place was amazing. It does. I have questions. Anyway. I think that's most of the updates that I've got to give right now. I would just say it's a good thing that I didn't try and schedule my live streams around Amira's vet appointment yesterday, because I turned up 10 minutes early for the appointment and got told, no, your appointment isn't till later today. So I did that embarrassed scurrying back out the door thing, like, oh, thank you, I must have stuffed up somehow. So I did that sort of super embarrassed scurry back out the door, got home, checked times, and I had been at the right time for my appointment. So then I had to get onto the clinic and organise them to squeeze her in for a new appointment. So more than half my day was gone yesterday trying to just get an injection for Amira for her allergies. So definitely a good thing that I didn't try and schedule my live stream around it, because it just would not have happened at all. I still don't know how they could possibly look on the computer and tell me that my appointment was a different time. That's what you have computers for. But anyway, moving on from that. Yeah, it's all the sort of thing that lawyers say. I guess probably because if this court clerk did say things like that, yeah, I don't know. Well, there was certainly a few other dogs there. I didn't see anyone there with cats. But there was certainly quite a lot of people in the waiting room. But when you get there, they don't have like just a booking sheet that's just got a running sheet of everything on there. They go into your actual account. So, you go in and they're like, oh, who's this today? And it's like, well, this is Amira. I mean, the vet nurses all know her now anyway, because she goes there every 10 weeks minimum for her injections. And, you know, you go in, she does her little weigh in, they add the weight to her file. So it's really baffling that she turned around and told me, no, your appointment is later today. I think the poor girl was probably really embarrassed because when I did go back, she kind of vanished out the back. She didn't come and say, look, I'm sorry or anything like that. So I think she was probably really, really embarrassed as well. But, you know, poor Amira, getting her out to the car, driving her out to the vet clinic, and we get there and she's like, oh, we're here. Oh, no. And then she got super excited when we just walked back out the door again. She's like, oh, well, that was good. Let's go home. So to have to make her turn around and go back again, she wasn't impressed at all. Oh, look, that's the thing, Nurse Mel. Because of my ADHD, I have done things like this before, where I turn up on the wrong day or I turn up at the wrong time. So I'm very familiar with that, trying to become invisible as you sneak out the door after saying, sorry, I made a mistake. So I didn't even question it when she said, you're too early, it's not till this afternoon. I just sort of went, oh, well, I'm embarrassed now, and I just kind of left. Yeah. Thankfully, Bonza, I've never turned up on my day off work. The closest I've ever come is early in my career, I was based in multiple work locations. So depending on which day it was where I would end up working for that day. And one morning I actually got about 10 minutes down the road towards the wrong location before I realised that I was headed the wrong way, and then I had to turn around and head back the other way. So I was late for work and I had to tell them, look, sorry, I was heading to this other location. But, you know, that was a classic time when you could walk in the door and someone would be like, oh, I didn't realise you were here today. And it would send me into a spin because I would think I was in the wrong location. So, yeah, ADHD. Gotta love it. It's nothing like what Daniel says. And I just want to point out that having ADHD doesn't mean you are broken, doesn't mean there is something wrong with you. Because the way he talks about it makes it sound like it's something that's just really wrong with a person, and it's not. I like to look at it as it's a different operating system. So, you know, like Mac versus you know, regular you know what I mean. So my brain is just a little bit slow today. Yeah, that Aaron McKenzie comes up quite a lot. There's a lot of names that come up quite frequently in the court lists, I have noticed. There's a few Mackenzies that come up in the court lists quite often. It's I wonder how big those families are. Because, yeah, there's a few people that come up. Anyway, I'm going to move on to this Daniel audio. Oh, there is, and I haven't got the image for it. Now, I'm going to be a bit vague here because I forgot to add this. I knew there was something else I had to add to this. And if Chelsea turns up at any point in time, I might get her to explain it better. There is a change.org thing that Chelsea has started. And if anyone knows exactly what it is, help me out. It is connected to a alerts that are being put out when children go missing. So like a vulnerable persons alert. Sorry, I looked at it really late last night, so I cannot remember, but there is a link. There is a change.org link that I have added now to the description. I think I've already put it in the description for this live stream, and I put it in the description for yesterday's live stream. And I'll find out more and I'll come back to that tomorrow. But it is in relation to alerts when children go missing. I believe it's something that Chelsea has started, or Chelsea was sharing on her Facebook, and I'm sorry I'm being so vague over it, but it certainly sounds like it is an attempt to just improve how things are done when children are reported missing, basically. So yeah, I forgot about that. Okay, so going back to Daniel on... Thank you. I knew there'd be someone who'd jump in and help me out. It's a petition asking for a vulnerable person's alert. So the link should be in the description for this live stream. I'm pretty sure I put it in there last night. If not, it will be when I finish. And I will be making sure that I keep adding it to my descriptions for my videos and my live streams so that people can jump in and sign that petition. We certainly do need to see some changes in terms of how things are done, I think, with cases in Nova Scotia, is my opinion. Like I said, I would like to see Canada introduce something like the card teams that they have in the United States, the child abduction rapid response teams. Yes, they jump in, obviously, if there's an abduction, but they also jump in straight away when a child is reported missing. There was an alert sent out to the surrounding area, I think. I'm not sure. Honestly, crazy. I seriously had contemplated starting a petition to get EquiSearch in. I'd have to sound some people out first. But I do believe that if there's anything to be found in that area, whether it's evidence or whether it is remains, that EquiSearch are definitely the best option. They have all the necessary technology. They would be able to, just for starters, pretty much clear every body of water in that area, which I think is important. They've got ground penetrating radar. They have so much. I mean, this is an organisation with 20-something, 25, 26 years experience. They know what they're doing. They have so many assets behind them in terms of what they can bring to a search. Yeah, they do. Now, I can't remember who it was, but someone was helping me with the communication with them. Obviously, as you guys know, the time difference here between Australia and the US makes things tricky in terms of trying to speak to people. So I actually had someone speak to them very, very, very early on and do the sort of the pre-conversation before I even raised it with Belinda. And they spoke to them about it and they said, yes, we do go to Canada. And they said they were interested in Lily and Jack's case, but they have to have a request from a family member or a request from law enforcement. And it's my understanding that the request was put in from Belinda's end, but that RCMP turned around and said, I think it was along the lines of, "Oh, we'll look into it. We're probably not going to, but we'll look into it." So it kind of got squashed at the RCMP end. So it would be something that would be good. Okay. What I'm going to do, because I've got the link on my iPad, so I don't know if I can share it across onto my Mac. Okay, I'm just going to read what I've got here. Petition to the Government of Nova Scotia, the Nova Scotia Department of Justice Emergency Management Office, and law enforcement agencies. Create an emergency vulnerable persons alert system in Nova Scotia. Okay. Nova Scotia, families and communities are experiencing devastating delays in public awareness when vulnerable people go missing. While Amber Alerts are an important emergency tool, many urgent cases involving vulnerable children, youth, adults, seniors, and at-risk individuals do not qualify under current criteria, leaving families to rely on social media, volunteers, and grassroots advocacy during the most critical early hours. Okay, this is not acknowledging why the current one doesn't seem adequate. So I think it must be asking for a change to what is on there. An emergency vulnerable persons alert could have immediately placed Lily and Jack's names, descriptions, and photos in the hands of millions of people across Nova Scotia and neighbouring provinces, increase visibility at a time when public awareness is most critical, encourage potential witnesses to come forward sooner, alerted travellers, transportation workers, etc. Expanded the search beyond social media algorithms, help generate real-time sightings or tips, create a faster or more coordinated province-wide response. Right, now, it is my understanding that the alert that went out pretty quickly, and it was sent out to surrounding areas, and it's my understanding that the radius is calculated based on time missing. So in terms of that, like if they'd been missing for an hour, the radius would be 100 kilometers based on how quickly a vehicle could travel or something like that. There were 2 missing vulnerable persons alerts that were put out on day 1. So I need to dig into this a bit more. I will dig into it a bit more and go from there. There seems to be a major issue in terms of organisations, like law enforcement organisations, who seem to be afraid that if they allow other organisations to come and help, that they might look silly or something like that. I know that with Adventures with Purpose, I know there were times when they were struggling with law enforcement, saying, "We don't want you here." So, so especially like in the Nancy Guthrie case. Now, I haven't followed it too closely, but for a sheriff to turn around and say, "Yeah, we don't want this group in here to help," wouldn't you just want help from anyone, everyone? This is what I don't understand. various law enforcement agencies who, and it's only a handful here and there, but these law enforcement agencies who just don't want outsiders helping because their pride gets in the way. They don't want to be upstaged. It should just be, okay, we've got an issue here. What resources can we access? Not, no, we're not going to access these resources because they're going to do a better job than us and make us look like fools. Yeah, Bonza, this is something that I have pointed out many, many times because it seems like so many cases that I've covered have had people complaining about the Amber Alert not going out. But the thing is, the Amber Alert was set up in 96, 97 when Amber Hagerman first went missing, or 95. Either way, it was mid-90s when little Amber went missing because a guy actually saw her being pulled off her bike by a man with a truck, and then he took off. And someone came up with the idea of the Amber Alert saying, well, back then, had it been possible to get the news out to radio stations and news channels, then there could have been an alert put out straight away. Like radio stations could have stopped what they were doing and said, right, we're just going to interrupt this broadcast for this Amber Alert. Now, because of it being Amber's case, that is why the whole purpose of the Amber Alert is for abductions. So there needs to be details of a vehicle or descriptions of an abductor. There's very, very strict guidelines when it comes to the Amber Alert. But at the end of the day, when you think about it, an Amber Alert going out back in the 90s, before the internet, was still only reaching a limited number of people. People didn't have their radio on 24/7 or their television on 24/7. So if an Amber Alert went out, and it has been effective, it has saved a lot of children. But if an Amber Alert went out, it still only reached the people that were listening to the radio and watching the television at that time. And yes, they would keep it running. But now, a vulnerable missing persons alert, that goes to everybody's phones within like 100-kilometre radius. Or whatever the radius, depending on how long they've been missing. So that is way, way, way more effective than what was ever intended for the Amber Alert. I think when you look at it that way, people, see the Amber Alert as this big golden thing that's going to solve all. But it's just, the name is just the difference here. Because you get the same reaction. If you put out an Amber Alert, yes, you do the same thing. But it's going to include details of a vehicle and details of an abductor. But if you put out a vulnerable missing persons alert, it still goes to the same number of people. It still hits, exactly, Bonza. It still hits social media. Thank you very much, Shannon. I realised also after, I think, my last live stream that I may have missed a few super stickers and a few super chats. So if I have missed thanking anyone for super stickers and super chats, I apologise profusely. It certainly isn't intentional, and I very much appreciate people's support. So apologies if I have missed anyone. At the end of the day, the Amber Alert was good back in the 90s, back in the early zeros, whatever you want to call it, before everyone was like permanently attached to their phones. But now a vulnerable missing persons alert is just as good. So yeah, I think they still do put Amber Alerts on signs and stuff on highways, but they also still do that around the place anyway. I know with Kylie Rodney's case, they didn't do an Amber Alert for her, but they put highway signs up for the first couple of days. Yeah, the naughties, whatever you want to call it. So I think there is that misunderstanding of it. The Amber Alert isn't some magical thing. The Amber Alert originally wasn't even nearly as effective as what a vulnerable missing persons alert is now. So I think people seem to not really understand that. And I think there's this idea that if you put out an Amber Alert, it's like the gold standard of alerts. When, to me, I can't see it as being any better now than a vulnerable missing persons alert, in my opinion. Okay, now I ran the audio back just a little bit with this Daniel stuff. Just to, because he's talking about the drugs and the effect on the ADHD and crap like that. So I wanted to run it back a bit for context. Like I said, a lot of this stuff I'm covering in a single video because it's important, I think, to address it. For me, as someone with ADHD, it makes me really cranky when people put out misinformation. And in a high-profile case like this, with some idiot trying to make ridiculous claims about his ADHD, where so many people are seeing it, then I'm going to get out and I'm going to put the truth out there. Yeah. The thing with the Amber Alert is if they have a description of a car, people can keep an eye out for it. But if they don't have a car, they can't do it. Exactly. And that's what people seem to not understand. You know, pushing for an Amber Alert. Well, okay, if you want an Amber Alert, give us a description of an abductor that you saw. Give us a CTV image of an abductor. Give us a description of a vehicle or plates for a vehicle. They couldn't do that with Lily and Jack because they didn't have that. So people seem to forget that every time. Anyway, yeah, actually, I'm just going to jump in and say, please do subscribe. If you're listening to my content and you're not subscribed, I look at my statistics and I see that there still are people who are listening that aren't subscribed. It's free. Something that helps my channel, greatly appreciated. Also, hitting the like is something that helps my channel a lot. And just having said that, before I go on, I did want to bring up one other thing, which I think is important to cover. I barely ever go on Facebook these days because it's just deteriorated to there's pretty much nothing in the various groups that are there. But I saw that someone had posted on Facebook about my playlist that I have, the case file playlist, which has every single bit of primary media available. So all the news articles, all the dispatch calls, like 5 hours worth of dispatch audio that's in order, timestamped, etc. All the various times that people have been talking on live streams like Janie and that. I haven't used any of the latest ones for Daniel. Obviously, things like that, I don't add them to the playlist unless I can condense the audio and I'm not, treading on people's toes. But, things like when he was talking with the turkey guy, that's in there on the playlist. Now, someone posted that on Facebook and said, look, Ninchi's got this playlist that's got everything. And someone put underneath it, oh, but all those you have to be a Patreon member to access them. I'm looking at it, I'm thinking, what? And thankfully other people commented on it. But no, my playlist for that sort of thing, my case file playlist is free to access. I don't post videos on Patreon. There's nothing on my Patreon that is hidden behind a paywall. And the only things that I put for members are usually things that are just, more relaxed chats about life or more relaxed chats about a case. Or in a few instances, it might be something where I've done an analysis that I wasn't comfortable with putting it out as a public thing for one reason or another. So no, that playlist, that case file playlist is there for the public. There's no paywall. And no, the dispatch calls weren't hidden behind a paywall on Patreon previously. There's nothing behind a paywall on my Patreon. My Patreon is free to join, and everything on my Patreon is free to download. Yes, there's a few tiers with Patreon for people if they want to support my channel, but it's not what I'm about. I'm about accessibility. I want people to be able to access documents and have accurate information. So I put things on there for free. Yeah, you can share it, Ninchi. You can share it. I don't have the link that I can share right now, but feel free to share my playlists anywhere. Feel free to let people know that my Patreon is free. I checked yesterday, and the latest lifted redactions are actually on my Patreon. So the document that lists all the things that were redacted, that is actually there on my Patreon for people to access. So the documents for this case are all on Patreon and all free. Likewise, I don't put regular content behind a paywall here. The only time that something is behind a paywall that's regular content is if I've got a backlog of videos, and then I'll whack one of the videos up for members to watch until I release it to the public. But I'm not about this exclusivity thing that happens. I don't charge $8 for membership to my channel like so many other people do. My channel memberships start, I believe, at $1.99. Well, that's in Australian dollars anyway. I don't know what that equates to for everyone else. And I only have two tiers. I have a $1.99 tier and a $2.99 tier. Yeah, we need a... I'm actually going to put all those songs into a playlist. I haven't re-released the Daniel one yet, but I will put a playlist out. But, you know, I'm not here to create some exclusive club where you have to be able to afford $8 a month to be part of that exclusive club or something. I've always wanted my channel, my Patreon, to be as accessible as I can for everyone. I don't think there's anything that I could offer that would make it worth me charging $7.99 for membership. And I don't think it's fair, because it's basically excluding people, especially when you dangle carrots and say, I've got this exclusive thing, but you've got to pay $8 membership if you want to see it. Yeah, Australia and Canada are pretty much the same at the moment. America is a bit different, I think, although I haven't looked at that lately. Honestly, now, I am a member of Hidden True Crime because John, who is, you know, part of the team with Hidden True Crime, he is a forensic psychologist. And a lot of the stuff that they put behind a paywall is stuff that he puts out in terms of discussing things from a psychology perspective, where he's not comfortable putting it out as, like, just as a mainstream thing. So with cases that they cover, sometimes there are some really great discussions behind the scenes where he's just wanting to keep it a bit more casual. John has a thing about talking about that sort of stuff on a, like, public forum. So I think I pay $8 a month for that. And that is to have access to a person who is a brilliant psychologist who has some really brilliant insights. So I'm paying that for his professional knowledge. Well, in terms of just a regular channel offering just regular members content, I can't justify charging $8 for membership. So yeah, I did get a bit upset when I saw this claim on Facebook that my playlist was behind a paywall, because it's not me. I remember the first channel that I was following that had memberships, or that I was aware of had memberships, was Grizzly True Crime. And I remember that feeling of, I can't afford membership. And I felt like I was excluded because, you know, she was talking about these cool things that were behind the paywall, essentially. And, you know, having these little in-jokes with members about, you know, oh, I'm going to put more of this up. Which is why I'm really careful and I'm really conscious about what I do mention in terms of what I'm offering for members. Yes, I want people to at least be aware that if they join membership, there will be things there for them. But I also don't want to be someone who's rubbing it in everyone else's noses and saying, well, come and spend money on membership because otherwise you don't get access to this. It's a fine line. But I certainly feel, the autopsy photos, that was, there were two. There was Annie Elise and Zavgirl. Zavgirl had the autopsy photos from Gannon in her Patreon. And I just, yeah. Yeah, I think, but playlists aren't usually behind a paywall. So I don't know why someone was saying, yeah, but this playlist, you can't get to it because it's behind a paywall. Anyway, that was just a bit frustrating, and I just did want to highlight the fact that that's not how I operate. Everything on my Patreon is free, and I don't have any videos on my Patreon regardless. Yeah, so just an example. Thanks, sponsor. That's a good example. So in terms of the Wade and Tint audio, that's in that playlist that I have. And are you right, Mouse? Oh, where are you? Sorry. That's in that playlist, but I basically went through and cleaned up the audio for that so it's easier to listen to. And I think I also added closed captions as well to make it easier so you can hear what's being said. It really should be illegal. There should be serious repercussions for anyone who decides to put up autopsy photos, especially behind a paywall. Like, I was sickened. I have not ever gone back to Zav's channel ever since she did that. When I heard about the stuff that Annie Elise was doing, I had stopped supporting her channel previously anyway. But I certainly would never support either of their channels again for that sort of BS. It's wrong. Anyway, let's have a little bit of this Daniel stuff. Oh, hang on. Give me a half a sec. Okay, where are you? You need to go out. Okay. Hang on a sec. I think he's awake and needs to go out. So, yeah, I'm coming. Just a minute. Let's go with this for one.
So tall, the cars are parked and watching me, they all speed away. When I step out the door, they take my pics and videos galore. Drones are buzzing high above my place, yet none appear online to show their face. No one sees my mom making the ground, just silent lights without a sound. It's like
Okay, sorry about that. Oh, bit of a dash, but I'm back. Right, where are we? Back into comments. Give me half a second. Okay, just seeing if I've missed anything. Yeah, that Zach guy saying that he wanted money for a trip to Nova Scotia and then actually not doing so, that was a bit disturbing. Okay, I'm going to play, sorry, catching my breath. I'm just going to play a little bit of pre-audio first with the Daniel stuff and then go on to the next bit. I think. I don't know what's going on here. Hang on.
Awful acts.
Oh.
I think a lot of people, when they hear, like, they heard that I did drugs in the past, that they put me into a category where they presume that everyone who did this certain drug or these drugs here, they categorize them and they're put into a category where it's like evil. If this person did this, they're probably crazy. Like, my substance abuse disorder has been in remission for over a year now. And I never relapsed. And I keep my head on steady and straight for my kids. It's not for me, right? It would be easy for me just to fall back and just do drugs and, you know, try to escape reality. And, you know, but that's not why I did drugs in the first place. I did it for my ADHD. But, like, my life is
Yeah,
not
that's close.
my life is not pretty. But
Yeah, that's called self-medicating.
yeah. And, you know, my psychiatrist, you know, I did an assessment with him and they diagnosed me with ADHD and now I have medication for it.
Okay, so pausing there, because I know people still commented after one of my most recent live streams when I commented that actually it doesn't work that way. People were like, well, yes, or someone commented, yes, he has been diagnosed. So just to make it really, really clear, when it comes to diagnosing ADHD, now I know that Australia and America use only the DSM-5, which is the, I keep forgetting the name, I just call it the DSM-5, so then I forget what it's called. There's also another one, which is World Health Organization, which is, I think, CDC 11. But for both of those, an adult cannot be diagnosed with ADHD unless they can prove the existence of symptoms before the age of 12. So whichever standard, now it's my understanding that Canada does use the DSM-5, but whether it's DSM-5 or CDC 11, there still has to have been evidence of ADHD prior to the age of 12. And that needs to be proved through a prior diagnosis, or like I said, through yes, thank you, Karen. Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, DSM-5. You can't, if it's a real psychiatrist and they basically diagnosed him without evidence of ADHD in childhood, then it's not a valid diagnosis. It's BS. Given the lies that Daniel has said, for all we know, this could just be another one of his lies. Now, when I go through this in a video, I'll also explain the criteria for diagnosing ADHD. Because here's the thing too. When you misuse or when you get into illegal, and I don't want to go into this too much, when you get into illegal stuff like meth and stuff like that, it actually messes with the way your brain does process, or the way my brain is just, sorry, I'm trying to read things and do things at once. The dopamine. So dopamine is like a neurotransmitter. And when you take illegal drugs, it changes the way your brain works. It changes the way your brain takes up dopamine. So if someone has a long-term use of stuff like that that is going to affect dopamine uptake in their brain, then it could well present in the same way as ADHD. Now, I'm not going to go into that too much here, but I do have... No, I'll come back to that in a minute. That's interesting, Crazy. You were diagnosed... Oh, you were ADHD as a kid, but never diagnosed until an adult. I'm guessing that the psychiatrist who did that obviously was talking about evidence as a kid and stuff like that. Did they not ask for school reports or anything like that? Because in Australia, it's really quite strict in terms of if you don't have a childhood diagnosis, they're quite strict in terms of proving selling tests online. Oh, look, the number of times something pops up in my stream that says, test and see if you're ADHD. There is a really comprehensive testing process with ADHD. Okay, so that's interesting. Maybe they're starting to acknowledge that there are so many adults out there who aren't diagnosed as children, and they're starting to realize that it's unfair to turn around and say, well, you weren't diagnosed as a child. But that's very curious. It's very curious. You got a diagnosis from a GP. Wow. Here in Australia, the diagnosis has to come from a psychiatrist. In terms of prescription, we have to go back every 12 months for a review with our psychiatrist. And they have to give authority for a specific GP to then do your subscriptions through the year. But I mean, here in Australia, you're looking at, I mean, my last review, just so that my GP can then continue to do scripts for me through the year, my last review was like $700 just to go to a psychiatrist. For nothing had changed. My dosage didn't change. Just basically saying, hey, yeah, she's still got ADHD, and yeah, this doctor can now prescribe for them as well. It just makes it so inaccessible for people. Yeah, Charlotte, there are so many women who were not diagnosed as children, and even now there are pediatricians who will not diagnose girls with ADHD. I mean, before I learnt more about my ADHD as an adult, you know, it was not something that I ever brought up with doctors or anything, because I was told as a child that, yeah, you were diagnosed with ADHD, but I decided that I wasn't going to medicate you. You were just going to learn how to behave, because that was the understanding that my mother had from media back in those days. So it's not something I had ever brought up with medical professionals, and it was only in one particular appointment where a professional said to me, "Have you considered you might have ADHD?" And I said, "I do. I was diagnosed as a child." And it was from there that I was then sent to get an adult diagnosis. So for me, you know, again, it was something that was, I forgot where I was going with this, so ADHD, but it's that whole lack of understanding of ADHD in females. And the number of people whose children are diagnosed with ADHD and then they suddenly learn that they've got ADHD. So, you know, it's a crazy, crazy thing. Sorry, just hiding that. Yeah, there are so many misdiagnoses. That's where I was going with mine, because I wasn't aware of how ADHD affects my world. Before I had that re-diagnosis as an adult, I'd been put on antidepressants, which just didn't seem to work for me. And it was only once I started on my medications for ADHD that suddenly life changed and I could function. But you get all these misdiagnoses. You get people who are diagnosed as suffering from depression, oppositional defiance disorder, just like you, Alana. You get people who are diagnosed with bipolar. You know, part of my struggle with adult ADHD in terms of finding the right clinician, the first this is classic. The first guy that I went to, the first psychologist I went to or psychiatrist that I went to, they didn't send out a notification of my appointment. And I missed my appointment. And I rang up because I was like, I must have an appointment coming up. I rang up and said, "Can you tell me when my next appointment is?" And they said, "You missed your appointment. And because you missed your appointment, he's no longer going to see you as a client." And I'm like, what the heck? I've got ADHD. I forget appointments all the time, you know. So I went from him. I then went trying to find other people, other psychiatrists who could treat me. And one guy that I went to, I'm sitting there and he's asking me questions, you know, ADHD related questions, and I'm giving him the answers. And he turned around and he said, "You're not ADHD, you're bipolar." And I said, "How do you figure that out?" And he said, "Well, these things." And there were a few things that overlap between ADHD and bipolar. And he decided that this one thing, which is an overlap between ADHD and bipolar, meant that I was bipolar. And I'm like, no, dude, go back and do some research and learn about ADHD. So it took a while. because there are some idiots out there, to be honest. It's not easy getting a diagnosis, that's for sure. So it's interesting hearing from people here that some of you had it much easier in terms of getting diagnosis, not having to prove from childhood. I guess so long as you can show that you had it at childhood, I guess a lot of psychiatrists are happy with that these days. Oh, don't get me started on good GPs. I had a brilliant GP, and she's now working down in Melbourne, so I've got to find another good one. Okay, so that's about where we were at, and here's where he starts talking about. So she mentioned, oh yeah, it's called self-medicating. It's not self-medicating. What he goes into here in terms of self-medicating. This guy's clueless, absolutely clueless, and I'll explain it in a sec. But I'm just going to play the next bit of audio first.
And a lot of people are at risk if they have ADHD for substance abuse disorder. It's like 60 or 70% of people with ADHD, because they're not trying to escape reality, or, they're trying to manage their brains the best way they can, because the way the brain's wired with ADHD, your dopamine levels are not high, sometimes up to 70% less dopamine than your average person. So that leaves a lot of empty space for people to want to do drugs to feel normal, because everyone with ADHD wants to feel normal, because they're so neurodivergent that not a lot of people understand that and understand how the brain's wired and how it operates. So I always wanted.
They're so neurodivergent. He doesn't even understand what neurodivergent is. You either are neurodivergent or you aren't. You're not so neurodivergent. It's not something that is measured in levels. Neurodivergent just means that your brain operates differently from neurotypical brains. It's not something that is like measured in a scale, like, oh, I'm so much more neurodivergent than you. He's a moron. Complete, utter moron. I had to laugh when he's talking about there being like 70% less dopamine than your average person. And I'm going to come back to that in a moment. But him saying that leaves a lot of empty space for people to want to do drugs. You've probably got a lot of empty space in your brain, Daniel, but most of us don't have empty space in our brain. In fact, if anything, those of us who have ADHD have so much more pinging around in our brains. I read a meme once one time where it was someone saying, I have more thoughts before breakfast than you do in your entire day. ADHD brains are just 100 mile an hour. Yes, Elena. Geez, a little bit of empty space in an ADHD brain would be a relief. Just a few moments when just all the 10,000 billion other thoughts aren't banging around together. Oh yeah, Daniel does know everything. He knows. Well, see, that's the thing. ASD, autism, is one thing that it comes under neurodivergence. Having autism means that you are neurodivergent. but there's no measurement. The measurement comes at the diagnosis level. So if you are considered level 1 autistic, then that's about the autism, not about the neurodivergence. So it's not measured in any way. It just means neurodivergent just means that you have ADHD, you have ASD, autism spectrum disorder, or you have bipolar disorder, or something that means that your brain functions in a different way to the neurotypical brain. Whoops. Yeah, 200 tabs open at a time. That's basically the ADHD brain. There's no empty space. It's chockers. It's like a mini full of clowns sometimes. The guy has no understanding whatsoever. It's ridiculous. Now, I want to address also what he's saying here, and I'm going to go into this more when I do this video talking about all this. But first of all, there's no statistics saying that an ADHD person has this percentage less dopamine. And ADHD is far, far more complicated than that. Also, it is not 60 to 70% of people with ADHD who become substance abusers. Adults, there is, I think, just going through what I've got here, half of all adults with untreated ADHD will develop a substance abuse disorder at some point in their lives. Also, a recent survey found that more than 15% of adults with the disorder had abused or were dependent on alcohol or drugs during the previous year. That's nearly triple the rate for adults without ADHD. Alcohol and marijuana were the substances most commonly abused. Now, there's nothing here. And these are from actual clinical sites. These are from legitimate sites, not from AI. So I don't know where he gets this 60 or 70% idea, because it's BS. I think he's just pulling it out of his ass, essentially. What I did find, and which I think is what he might be confused with, there was a study at Harvard of young adults, and it said, and this was young adults with ADHD, and it said that only 30% use substances to get high, 70% are doing it to improve their mood, to sleep better, or for other reasons. So I think he's read that and equated it to this random statistic that he's got. So the guy is really not intelligent. He needs to actually learn how to research and not read things in AI and then get a half-assed idea, because none of what he's saying is correct here. I still can't get past this. Leaves a lot of empty space for people. Like, yeah, we don't have empty space in our brains if we have ADHD. Trust me. So let's talk about the dopamine thing. And like I said, I'll cover this more. But just to give a bit of an explanation. Now, this isn't entirely the best way that I could demonstrate it. It's just one way that I thought might help a little bit, and I'll explain it after I play it. So I've got a short video clip here for you.
Perro, agarren al perro, ya lo fueron a enlazar. Ya está, ya quiere jugar, que meta gol el perro, que meta gol el perro, sí, llévatela. No, no se lo puede quitar, no, está.
Okay, you're probably thinking, what the heck? But I thought it might help a little bit with the explanation. So, in terms of dopamine levels and stuff, now there's still a lot of research to be done. And this is not something that they're saying basically this is what is wrong with people with ADHD. They're saying this could be one factor. Now, with dopamine, basically what happens is you have cells that produce the dopamine. They're neurotransmitters. And they go into, the dopamine goes into just, a space where it then gets taken up by dopamine transmitters. So it's basically ADHD brains produce the same amount of dopamine as other, like, neurotypical brains. But the problem is that we have, I'm trying to word this without making it sound too nerdy. Okay, so picture the dogs. Basically, the ball is them basically running off with those little bits of dopamine before it gets through to the brain. So we have these neurotransmitters that basically transfer the dopamine through to the brain. And when it's used up, there's these other little things in the brain that clean it up and get rid of the excess dopamine. And what happens in the ADHD brain is essentially we've got too many of these other transmitters in our brain that basically are sweeping away the dopamine before it actually gets through to the proper brain cells and does anything. So it's like these dogs running in and stealing the ball and stopping the game. I will explain it better when I do it in a video. I'm so ADHD today. This is just one of those days. But it's about having, it's not about that we don't produce enough dopamine. It's that the dopamine just doesn't get to the right place. It just gets swept out of the way before it gets there. But that is only one minor, teeny part of ADHD. There's actually 3 separate neurotransmitters that are affected by ADHD. So the guy's clueless. I'm just going to put it at that. Now, what he's saying here, I'll play the next part, and then I'll explain that too, because he's jumped onto this idea of self-medicating, and he doesn't understand what it means. Yeah, the pinball bouncing off the flippers. I like that, Deborah. I do like that. It's the dopamine levels aren't getting through, because what the dopamine does is it helps us with, you can tell I'm not getting much right now. It helps us with memory, like short-term memory. It helps us with our coordination. It helps us with emotional regulation and stuff like that. So when the dopamine's not getting into the right pathways, they're the things that are affected. But it's not that we don't have as much dopamine. It's just we produce it, but it gets swept away, essentially, before it gets to the right place. Anyway, that was probably the crappiest explanation ever. I will do better. Okay, I need to find this video again.
On that. It was never about getting high. It was never about escaping reality. It was about trying to feel normal, Charmaine. And stimulants
So
were the only
sometimes,
way to actually get that feeling of being normal. I wasn't crazy.
right,
I wasn't out
sometimes,
committing crimes. I wasn't, hurting people. I'm not like that. And I will never be like that. I never hurt Lily and Jack. I never hurt Malaya. I never hurt anyone in my life.
maybe
It
it
made me
helps
feel
slow the
relaxed,
breakdown.
Charmaine. I could feel normal and I felt relaxed. It was a total opposite effect to most people. I was focused and I felt relaxed. And that was like the first time in my life.
Okay, I call BS on that completely. Completely. Utter BS. Now, when people talk about people with ADHD self-medicating, they're talking about things like caffeine. They're talking about things like marijuana. And yes, they do tend to affect us differently because some people, it just doesn't mellow you enough. I know for me, when I was in my 20s, I tried marijuana a few times and it just didn't really affect me in any way. But people, the self-medicating is people who drink 6 cups of coffee a day or get into the marijuana to dull all the bouncing around in their brains. But what happens when a person uses something like meth or coke is not what he's describing here. See, the difference is between, and I think he's just got it in his head because he knows that a lot of ADHD medications are similar in structure to pure meth. And that's important. They're not the same. They are so not the same. Now, you only get pure meth if it is actually, legal stuff, which is not something that he's going to have access to. The illegal stuff that he was getting would have been full of other crap. Could also have hallucinogenics in it, have all sorts of other crap in it. So for starters, it is not the same. Well, even from the beginning, regular meth is not the same as what is used for ADHD. Now, he thinks that because ADHD meds level us level people with ADHD and allow more focus and stuff, he's got no understanding what he's talking about. Because essentially, ADHD medications, they are one of 3 types. They either act immediately, like when you take a Dex, or they might be a long-term thing like Vyvanse. So for me, of a morning, I take a Vyvanse. It's a slow release. It lasts 12 hours. It takes about an hour to kick in. It lasts 12 hours. And during that time, it does level me. It allows me to focus more. It allows me to regulate things like my emotions and stuff like that. What are you doing? Oh, sorry. Sorry. Amira was just, wasn't happy in her bed. She was fixing it up. Taka is sleeping on their favourite bed at the moment, so they're both a bit out of sorts. So the point with ADHD medication is that it is something that is given at the right dosage, and it is something that is at the right dosage. It works over time. Now, like I said, first of all, math is not the same. The chemical structure is similar, but it is not the same as things like dexamphetamines. It is not the same. It is not the same as ADHD medications. It is like the cousin of ADHD medications, and that is only math in the pure form, not what he's talking about. But the thing is, it's not a leveler, because when a person takes these illegal drugs, it's this rush of dopamine. Having a rush of dopamine affects everyone's brain the same way, regardless of whether you are ADHD or not. So he's still going to have this rush of dopamine and get high, because it's not this controlled dosage like when we have meds for ADHD, and it's not even the same thing. So he's basically pulling this crap out of his ass and trying to say that it just calms him. It doesn't. Whether you have ADHD, ASD, whatever it is, if you take math, it's not the same as taking a medication for ADHD, which is going to help you to focus. It is going to help you to control your emotions and things like that. No, it is not a controlled dosage for starters. It is not the same thing, and it does cause this rush of dopamine levels. It is not going to affect him the way that he's claiming. That is BS. What he's saying in terms of, oh, you know, it made me feel relaxed. I could feel normal and felt relaxed. Total opposite effect to people. BS, Daniel. BS. That would be if you were maybe taking something that had THC in it. Maybe caffeine somehow does seem to calm people. I know I used to when I was really stressed. I mean, I can't drink coffee anymore because it doesn't affect me too well. But when I was really stressed, coffee would help me to calm down. But no, you don't become calm from taking meth or coke or anything like that. Yes, there's the change you feel when you take proper medication for ADHD. It's suddenly like the world is coming to focus a little bit more. But that's not the way that taking math affects people. It's a completely different thing. And in fact, people who take stuff like that are more likely to have panic attacks, are more likely to have issues with controlling their emotions, are more likely to fly into a rage. And that's regardless of whether you are ADHD or not. So the guy, he's got no idea whatsoever. He's basically and saying, you know, total opposite effect. That's because a lot of people say that, you know, you can tell if someone has ADHD and they take proper ADHD meds, you can see how it affects them differently to how it affects people who don't have ADHD. So he's read a bunch of stuff online with no understanding and decided this sounds like a really good excuse, a really good way of basically coming up with an excuse, making myself look like I've done nothing wrong. Oh wow. Lavender oil making someone with ADHD hyper. For me, it's one of the things that relaxes me really quickly. That's amazing. Some people do have triggers. But trust me, the whole self-medicating thing, when it comes to ADHD, when people refer to self-medicating with ADHD, they're referring to things like marijuana and caffeine that calm you. No. Not at all. Any lawyer worth their salts would basically turn around and say that, first of all, given that there seems to be pretty clear evidence when we look at various interviews, there seems to be pretty clear evidence that he has still been using within the last 12 months. Just that, for starters, would call a diagnosis into question. But this BS stuff about how he used math to control his ADHD, that would be just shat all over by a decent prosecutor. And they will, if he tries to use it as a defense, they will have their own forensic psychologist do an assessment of him. And it's not going to go down well for him, in my opinion. Yeah. That's why the last live stream I did, I played that audio. Maybe. I do have that clip. I think it's at the beginning of this. Hang on, let me play this.
Easy for me
Oh, hang
just
on.
to fall back and just do drugs. And
No, that's not the one. Okay, I'll skip that. I thought I had the Haley, but I don't, so I'll put the other one back on.
I felt normal. And
Yes, Adderall can be a little bit addictive. Anything that has amphetamines in it can be addictive. But it's not something that you should be stopping straight out. But at the same time, I know a lot of people who will take breaks from their ADHD medication and don't seem to have problems with it. So I don't know how addictive it is, because obviously the dosage is not like when you're taking illicit drugs or anything like that. Now, there's a little bit more of his audio about this that I want to play before I shoot him down in flames again. And I probably need to run it back a few seconds.
people, I was focused and I felt relaxed. And that was like the first time in my life where I felt normal and I felt relaxed, and it was a different view I had on the world. It wasn't crazy. It wasn't on the street doing crazy stuff. I still went to work every day. It's hard for a lot of people to understand that and really grasp that concept.
So the guy is a fool. The guy is an utter fool. I've never heard anyone with ADHD say, like, I just want to feel normal. And meds aren't about making you feel normal. It's about making you feel like you can focus on one thing at a time, making you feel like your emotions are more regulated, making you feel that you can tolerate that person sitting in the corner tapping their pen against the wall or something. It's not a thing about being normal, and that's a judgment thing. Saying, oh well, you know, ADHD people aren't normal. We are normal. So I call BS on that. But I would never, and yeah, I'm gonna disagree with you on that. Like, obviously, I've never done these things. All the research shows that in terms of street meth and coke and stuff, that it doesn't make you feel normal. You still get that rush. You still get that dopamine high because it's not controlled. It just hits you all at once, regardless of whether you are ADHD or ASD or whether you're neurotypical. It may not hit you as hard as it hits other people, but it's still going to have that effect of getting you high, because that's what it does. So I wouldn't exactly consider that as normal. His normal is not most people's normal. But I do take offense at someone claiming that if someone has ADHD, they're not normal. And like I said, having meds for ADHD, it's not about feeling normal. It's about feeling like you can focus, feeling like things have slowed down a bit. It's like being able to do this particular tedious task that you maybe wouldn't be able to do if you weren't medicated. It's an excuse for him, basically. End of story. What he's saying is basically not what he's experienced, but what he's read. Yeah, it's a nasty thing. It's something that, yeah, I'm not going to delve into too much here, but yeah, math, anything like that is not good. It ruins lives. It's about how you cope, how you focus, how you function. I'm probably less likely to trip over a teeny tiny stick when I'm on my ADHD meds because it helps me with my executive function. You think Drunk Turkey put it in his head first? Could have done. I have to go back and listen to that. But if Daniel has ADHD, it has no bearing whatsoever on what happened here. Because having ADHD doesn't make you do the things that whatever it was that happened to Lily and Jack. having ADHD doesn't make you someone who is responsible for DV or is someone who is coercive in their relationships. He cannot use this as an excuse. He does not know what he's talking about. I'm just going to put it that way. He's a complete, utter idiot. Your son explained, like, he was able to focus and concentrate, and concentration was better, able to sit for more than 10 minutes. Yeah, exactly. For me, it's definitely about the focus. It's also definitely, it helps me regulate my emotions and things like that. So if I'm headed down to Melbourne and I've got to drive through Melbourne traffic, because the traffic up here in Bendigo is pretty quiet, I can tell the difference between trying to drive in Melbourne traffic when I've had my ADHD meds and trying to drive in Melbourne traffic when I haven't. Because my anxiety levels go through the roof if I'm trying to drive in Melbourne traffic and I haven't had my ADHD meds. I've learnt that if I've got to go down to Melbourne, then, you know, I usually get down there towards lunchtime. So I will have a top up a little bit earlier with Dex so that by the time I hit all the Melbourne traffic, I don't have a issue with my anxiety with dealing with all the traffic. So, you know, it's not something, it's not what he thinks it is. Melbourne trams. Now, see, because I didn't grow up in Victoria, because I didn't learn to drive in Victoria, I will not drive in any of the areas in Melbourne where you have to do those silly hook turns, because I don't know how to do that. And it scares the bejesus out of me. A lot of the time these days, if I'm headed down to Melbourne, then I'll probably park, you know, half an hour out of the city and catch a train the rest of the way. And if I've got to go anywhere where there's going to be places where I would have to do hook turns with these trams, I won't go there. I will park my car and catch a train or a tram because I don't understand hook turns. They're bizarre. Having to sit on the left-hand side of the road so you can do a right-hand turn through traffic and through trams. It's bizarre. Utterly, utterly bizarre. But yeah, just like, you know, around the freeway and everything in Melbourne, that stresses me out if I haven't had my ADHD meds to help me just focus and stay calm. Yeah, just the thought of trying to do hook turns down in Melbourne does my head in. Like, it's just a really weird concept. And obviously it's not something that I learned when I was learning to drive, because Tassie doesn't even have trams. So, yeah, I wouldn't even know how to do it. I mean, I know the concept of it, but I'd be that person that would have 2 or 3 other cars sitting behind me honking their horns. No, hook turns aren't the same as roundabouts. Hook turns are this bizarre thing that is unique to Melbourne, Australia. And what it is because we've got a really extensive tram network in the city in Melbourne. When you drive in the city area in Melbourne, you have to give way to trams. So if you are doing, no, they're not U-turns either. If you're doing a right-hand turn in the city in Melbourne, you can't sit in the right lane and wait to do a right-hand turn. What you actually have to do is there is a lane in the far left. And just for those of you who are in America, just remember we drive on the opposite side of the road. So a right-hand turn means basically you've got to turn in front of oncoming traffic. So I'll bring up a video tomorrow of it. Sorry, just making a note. Basically, you have to go off to the opposite side of the road to where you're going to make that right-hand turn. So you're off in a left-hand lane on the opposite side of the road to where you want to turn, and you've got to wait and give way to all the other traffic that's going both ways and give way to trams before you can finally do a right-hand turn. It's bizarre. It's insane. It's clearly something that was designed before the traffic got nuts. But it's, yeah, hook turns are it's hard to describe because they are insane. They're illogical. They're completely illogical. Whoever came up with the idea was a moron. Complete, utter moron, in my opinion. So, look, I'll just see. Hopefully I won't lose you guys. What I'll do, hang on. Let me put on. I'm going to try and put on another. Okay, what haven't we had today? I'm just going to put on the Anita video for a minute, and I'll see if I can find a video on YouTube of what a hook turn looks like, because it'll blow your mind.
I had a glass of wine and poured another. Told the bad boy come right over. Left both doors open wide. He said you best be armed, I'm coming inside. I grabbed my pew and some Merlot. Called my husband, said here we go. Message detectives on my phone. The bad guys coming, I'm not alone. They're chasing me down the road, doing 140 in my Mercedes load. Call 911, but they're too slow. Gotta reach the cops before they know. 6 police cars on my face. Ski mask dude in a Honda Chase. I'll race them all with my V8 while calling Ralph, don't make me wait. He said slow down, I said no way. These hillbillies want me today. Pulled up to the station gate. The cops just stared and made me wait. They're chasing me down the road, doing 140 in my Mercedes load. Called 911, but they're too slow. Gotta reach the cops before they know. Met detectives at Tim Hortons, played the tape of all his warnings. Mad Dog said you did just right, while 9 more crates come out at night. Husband told him I'm not crazy, sent the cops home being lazy. Tomorrow getting faster wheels for when more villains chase my steel. They're chasing me down
Okay, let's try this. Now, if I go share screen, hold your breath, share entire screen. And I've lost the tab. Crap. Well, that didn't work. How do I get... hang on, if I minimize this... Bear with me. Okay, we'll put this up front. Hopefully you're... oh, sorry about the ads. Sorry. Okay, so hopefully you've still got me. Put that up. Remove that. It is nuts. Scares the bejesus out of me. I really don't think that I could actually do that. I would, because you're sitting in the middle of an intersection. I'd be worried that someone was going to run into me, and then I'd be panicking about getting across the intersection when the light changes. It does my head in, especially because, and this is something that is a constant cause of tension between myself and my sister. In Tasmania, it is illegal, even if you have a green light, it is illegal to stop ahead of the intersection. So if you're waiting to do a right-hand turn in Tassie, you can't edge your way into the intersection and then do a right-hand turn as the light turns orange. You've actually got to sit back out of the intersection and wait before you do that right-hand turn. And you can get booked, you can get charged, you can get a huge fine. Whereas in Victoria, the only way you're going to get around the corner a lot of the time is if you do edge your way into the intersection a bit and then zoom around when the light turns red. So I've been in Victoria for, what, nearly 8 years? Well, I have been in Victoria for 8 years. And I still sit back in the intersection waiting to do a right-hand turn because after learning to drive in Tassie, after years of driving in Tassie, I feel like I'm breaking the law. I feel like I'm exposed sitting partway into the intersection, and it just annoys the bejesus out of my sister. And she's so often telling me, "Oh, you drive like a Tasmanian." And I get people behind me who honk their horns because I haven't edged into the intersection. So for me, the idea of doing hook turns down in Melbourne, that just does my head in. It's just something that I wouldn't be able to do it. I would be too stressed. I'd be worried about being stuck there in that intersection in front of all those other cars and be like, oh my gosh, what do I do now? If I had a passenger, it would probably lead to an argument because my stress would lead to an argument. I can't can't even comprehend how people are comfortable with doing that. So hence the reason why if I need to go into the city area in Melbourne, I park out in the suburbs and I catch a train or I catch a tram. I mean, we have a brilliant public transport system here in Victoria, well, in most states. So, you know, you're only ever waiting a few minutes for a tram anyway. And now, in terms of trams and trains and everything, I think at the moment they've just made them all free. But it's really, really cheap to just hop on a train, head down into Melbourne. You don't have to worry about parking. There's no, because parking is expensive in Melbourne too. So it's just, yeah, I just don't drive down there. That was the other thing I had to learn when and I know this happens in a lot of places, when I moved to Victoria, in Melbourne, with around the train stations and stuff, with the escalators, it is just expected that you stay to the left on the escalator so that people can go past you on the right-hand side. And the first time I was in Melbourne with my sister, and I was just kind of standing in the middle part of the escalator, so no one could have gone past me. And my sister's like, "You've got to move over. You've got to get over to the left." It, yeah, so many things that are just crazy. I mean, I always tend to stick to the left anyway, and I think that's something that I don't know about other states, but I know for me, it was really indoctrinated in, like, Tasmanian schools that you went up the stairs on the left, you walked on the left so that people could go past you on the right and stuff. But, you know, it's all just weird stuff. If I lived in Sydney, I don't know if I would ever drive. I nearly had a nervous breakdown the last time I drove through Sydney. When I did my road trip, I stayed at Marrickville, which is, you know, kind of in a Sydney area. There was something I had planned for my second day there, but from dealing with the traffic just getting into Sydney, I was like, I just got to get out of this place. And then heading back down the coast, just getting through Sydney. I didn't even have to go into Sydney, but I just had to pass through Sydney. It was like 2 hours of sitting in traffic, and it was a nightmare. It was so stressful. And that was even with being on my ADHD meds, that by the time I got out of Sydney, I had to pull over at one of the service centres and just have some chill time because I was so stressed. And driving in Sydney is scary. I would drive in Melbourne. I would drive in Sydney if I had to, but honestly, it is scary. Yeah, really, really scary. I don't blame people who don't want to drive in Sydney, that's for sure. Anyway, this has kind of totally gone off track again. But I think I probably did need to explain the hook turn thing. That was hard to explain. I know I've kind of been all over the place today in this live stream, but trying to explain different things. I'll do that video with regards to the ADHD stuff and explain it more clearly, so rather than the vague description that I gave in this live stream. I'll hopefully get that out today, and I'll also hopefully get out an update with Phoebe's case for people. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to leave it at that. Clearly my brain is switching off. So thanks for coming in, everyone. Thanks for joining me. If you're new, please do subscribe. And please, if you haven't hit the like button yet, hit the like button on the way out, please. Okay, thank you, and I'll catch you all in the next one.